Hello folks. You know, we've possibly known each other for maybe a long time now, and if there's one thing my output has been over the past several years, it's... No, not sporadic. Give me ease off. For God's sake. It's that I usually try and only review shows I've at least partially enjoyed. A while back I learned about the whole if you read a positive review for something you're more likely to have a good time watching it and vice versa for negative reviews thing, and since I'm a sucker for positivity and all that jazz, my intention has been more to try and be a recommendation channel really, save a few notable outliers. Basically a lot of the time I worry I'm too nice. Am I coming on too strong with this? Can you feel the general tenor of the review forming already? Whoops, bear with me, I'm sure I'll tell another joke or two down the line. What I mean to say is twofold, basically. One, that I've probably given a freer pass to some things that, in hindsight, I wish I'd come down harder on. For example, the closing sequence of Dangeresque's opening episode, and two, that Lazarus is a really troublesome thing for me to reckon with. I'll elaborate. So as anyone watching the show probably knew going in, or perhaps picked up very quickly, Lazarus is a show by one Shinichiro Watanabe, who, according to my anime list, directed, storyboarded, wrote, and was otherwise generally in charge of it. Now, I've not kept up with his more modern past works. Carol and Tuesday, Terror in Resonance, really need to watch Kids on the Slope, but you know what I'm getting at. My big Watanabe talking points are Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, and it's where most of my opinion on his body of work forms. I don't want to be formulaic and suggest that everything Watanabe does needs to be measured against Bebop, but this to my eyes feels like the most he's tried to recapture that general vibe since. The opening is very tank just by itself. You know, I think it's time we blow this scene, get everybody in this stuff together, yeah? 3, 2, 1... You with me? You with me? And Bebop is a really brutal bar to be measured against even for the best of shows. Is Lazarus the best of shows? It's, well, it's got some room for improvement, but sake of clarity, let me dive a little deeper. Lazarus is the story of a man named Skinner, who, frustrated with the apathy of the world around him in the face of existential threats, elected to develop a drug called Hapner that, when taken, relieves people of maladies both physical and mental. Hapner spread globally and cheaply in the 3 years since its introduction, causing a golden age where pain of all kinds is a thing of the past. Which sounds lovely, really, and a terrible way to get revenge on the species, only for that charlatan to reveal 2 years and 11 months later that Hapner was actually poison designed to mutate and kill whoever takes it 3 years after it was initially taken. But hold on a moment. That means... It's an elaborate plan, but I can appreciate the chutzpah. But not so fast. Skinner has the antidote and will distribute it, but only if literally anyone finds him. Thus begins a planet-wide game of hide-and-seek for the notorious world-famous genius that has an entire species' theoretical blood on his hands, which is really unfortunate for him since that's much harder to wash off than the regular kind. Except it seems like nobody actually wants to look for him, which I imagine was quite a blow to his ego, so to make him feel better, the American government puts together a team of random ne'er-do-wells to hunt him down and save the world. The team is codenamed Lazarus after that fellow who died and came back to life. Wonderful to see that the art of subtle storytelling remains alive and well, although if I were them, I might not have named it after a guy who did actually die. Wouldn't inspire tremendous confidence in me were I a member. Next time the world's in crisis and needs a dubiously capable team of sort of heroes to save it, they'll probably call them the Hulkamaniacs. We're all told that the first human deaths from Hapner's mutation will start to occur in 30 days, and thus they have their time limit and we are inciting incident. The pressing question, how do you find a man who doesn't want to be found? The answer? The thing is, you check his house, he's probably not going to be there. So there we go. Clock's on, lives are on the line, our peppy crew of Devil May Care parkour champ, femme fatale, brainiac snarker, hacker girl, and, drone boy are set loose to, try and find Skinner. And every episode of this 13-episode series is about investigating, not even a lead really, often just a best guess as to where they might try and find any information about Skinner's location on often pretenses so thin they're barely above Skinner did visit this place at one point in his life. It's like if someone made a thriller mystery show with the general plot savviness of Dangeresque.
Oh yeah? Well, you need me because I'm the only one that knows where Porducci is. And where that is that he is in Istanbul.
Istanbul! Of course!
I know I've gone on record plenty of times saying that I really enjoy episodic storytelling, and I do, don't get it twisted, but like an indecisive switch, Lazarus can't seem to figure out how it wants to take things. On the one hand, it wants the overarching plot of trying to look for Dr. Skinner, but on the other hand, it wants to have little isolated adventures with its fun little guys, and I think that's really the sticking point that snags in the craw and ultimately collapses a lung. It would be nice if there were a consistent lead for the team to follow episode to episode instead of each episode being a lead that hits a total dead end and then forces them to try something else over half of the time. This is what happens, by the way. I'm not dreaming idly here. I very rarely had a sense that what they were about to do was going to, in any way, help them save the world, and very few of the steps seemed like either something you'd need to hire a bunch of extraordinarily skilled criminals to be able to do, or indeed would progress the search for Skinner in any meaningful way whatsoever. You could probably just send a guy to do most of the things you could send me. The story fundamentally is at odds with itself. It wants to have time pressure, it wants to feel like a desperate race against the clock, but it's a 13-episode series where damn near every single episode ends with a, well, that didn't work, to the point where sometimes I wondered if they were even trying to find Skinner at all. Every time an episode ended and zero progress had been made, I made sure to say, I'm sure they'll find Skinner next time, to the assured growing frustration of my watching buddy. Hell, it's easy to forget the Lazarus gang are even looking for the guy in the first place, which is a trait I sadly did not share with them. Then again, I'm not the one the government tasked with actually finding him, and heavy spoilers incoming, but I did a better job of finding Skinner than they did. Episode 3, I saw this guy, thought, hold on, that's Skinner, only for star of stage and screen Doug to stare right in his face and proceed to not notice him at all. I thought, is he stupid? Why isn't he asking? He's the smart one. But since they wrote it off, I assumed it was a red herring or perhaps an oversight. No, that was him. That's Skinner. He's right there. Episode 3. Should have had me on the team, huh? Hapner just isn't threatening. I mean, conceptually it is, but nobody is taking it seriously. If I was Skinner, I'd feel pretty ticked off. There's a grand total of one scene of unprompted chaos in a downtown area, but for the most part, people aren't acting scared, they aren't letting loose and embracing the chaos, there's no real downturn of society other than a news broadcaster saying, won't anyone think about the shareholders, which is surprisingly fitting for the pacing of the thing. Perhaps the biggest failing besides the pacing is how poorly they sell this thing as an apocalyptic event, to the point where I genuinely think the series would be improved if it just wasn't a thing at all, or at least if it became the bigger threat later as a smaller arc, or perhaps the second half of a 24-episode series wherein the first was devoted to the team coming together, something, anything. There's a world where this show works, and works well at that, and I don't say that completely out of nowhere either. There are moments of fleeting joy to be found in here. I do like the cast quite a bit, and it's a genuine shame so few of the episodes have them working together as a team. The one that does really feel like it's utilizing them all well provides a glimpse into that halcyon timeline involving this big scuffle on an oil rig, and extraordinarily fittingly, they're there to rescue a member of the team, not to find Skinner or cure Hapner. It's the most selfish the team are, it's the least involved with the plot any episode is, and yet it was my favourite to watch by a mile. In this one fleeting, beautiful episode, I saw the potential of these guys and this team doing action film nonsense, each performing their role in the team and working together. It was genuinely exciting and fun to watch. This could have been the whole series. We could have had this the whole time. Well, that, but then they had the villain turn out to be the blonde woman's doomed lesbian old flame who then promptly explodes seconds after confessing her love. So, you know, not all sunshine and roses. We've got some utterly insulting amateur level tripe in here too. Never can just be good, can you, Lazarus? Always got to force me to flick an asterisk onto every sentence. Also, and this is an aside, but I thought it was weird. 2 episodes later, she kisses Axel, the ostensible protagonist, which seems like a pretty fast rebound. I mean, I'm not one to judge, get yours, queen, but to say it felt unearned would perhaps be an understatement. There's not a lot of love there. And speaking of apathetically making out with someone, Actually, let's forego that segue. A big theme of Lazarus is apathy in the face of existential threats. With the Arctic ice shelf having melted, whoops, territorial disputes over the waters in the North Pole are reaching crisis point, and despite the fact that everyone's going to die in 30 days or fewer, we're still gearing up for a global conflict. Skinner's trail, thin on the ground that it is, leads everyone to places affected by global warming, and more than once, the team takes in the natural beauty of the world around them and claims that perhaps the world without humanity would be the better one. It's heavy-handed, rather preachy, if glancingly accurate, but at least it's a theme, I suppose. You know how in the Star Wars prequels, there's that the Sith are clouding the minds of the Jedi excuse for why everyone's completely brain dead and the writing's so full of plot holes? I half wonder if the fact that a big theme of the show is people being apathetic about their inevitable destruction gives a handwave to what would, in another show, be lackluster writing. It's really hard to care about the potential outbreak of World War III when, if the team doesn't find Skinner, every combatant will keel over in a week. Again, it's at odds with itself. To be clear, I do think that everyone being apathetic towards their seemingly inevitable destruction is the main theme of the series, but it just didn't work for me personally. At the very least, I'd expect our main characters to care, have them be the only people fighting back against the overwhelming apathy of the human race a la Persona 3, but no, I didn't get a sense that a single cast member cared either. And that could be by design. It may be trying to hold a mirror up to the world in which we find ourselves, but it does so by having a story with no stakes whatsoever, since it seems to take humanity's doom as a given, which, rather than being bleakly effective, just saps all the energy out of the proceedings. The point may very well be that even if they find Skinner and obtain the cure for Hapner, rather than the wake-up call Skinner presumably hoped it would be, humanity is doomed regardless, but that kind of overwhelming total nihilism still runs directly counter to telling an engaging action thriller story. It wants to be Black Mirror and Mission Impossible at the same time, and I'm not saying that could never work, but it sadly doesn't here. It's not that the theme itself is misplaced really, just that it's executed incredibly poorly. In the final episode, the team has yet to find Skinner, and yet the head of the organization is threatening an antagonistic third party with legal action. You're going to die in 24 hours. Nobody cares about it? They're just taking it as a given that the cure will be found. Again, it's hard to know if that's intentional or just poor writing, but regardless, it's hard to take seriously. Hapner is so unthreatening that the final few episodes had to introduce an indoctrinated assassin after the life of our boy Axel here, just to try and salvage what few stakes it could, like a man with a shopping cart desperately racing after an Arby's truck with its back doors open. By the way, if that wasn't clear, in the middle of this overarching Hapner will kill everyone plot, they introduce a we need to stop World War III subplot, and then introduce a crazed assassin subplot, and a corporate espionage subplot. And then they find out at the 11th hour that Skinner's a block away from the office. That rules, man. Slanging off the rails. It genuinely almost starts to feel like a joke, which sounds really cruel of me to say, but you know what? I'm a mean dude, that's just how I roll. I worry I'm too nice. To be frank, I'm a little shocked at how negative this review is, considering there is a lot to like buried in here. In a lot of ways, it's simply less than the sum of its parts, which is a damn shame. Its brief dalliances with quality just aren't enough to justify its existence. But then again, I say the same thing to myself all the time, so who am I to talk? There's a lot to love here, to be absolutely certain. The fight scenes are some of the most kinetic and fun to watch I've seen, and they're clearly where a lot of the time and budget went. Axel and Christine fighting in a club was a joy to watch, for example, especially this little move here where he tosses her and she shoots whilst she's being thrown. It feels like a halfway between dancing and fighting, and it's just brilliant, especially in the context of a gunfight in a nightclub. Those all too infrequent moments where the team actually feels like both a team and like they're actually on task. The soundtrack's great, the animation's great, it's really pretty to look at, but it simply didn't work for me, and I think the main culprits are the pacing and the tone. The substance just isn't there. It either needed more time for the cast members to really cook together, or it needed less time so it could be more focused on the ticking clock element, but as it stands, its middle-of-the-road length is a hindrance to the pacing, whilst also making episodes filled with more character exploration feel like they were wasting time that should have been precious, but never felt like anyone thought it was. It's remarkable and oddly depressing that for a series so concerned with the evils of apathy, apathy is just about the only emotion I can call to mind when I look back on it.
Porducci's gotta be here around in Istanbul somewhere.
I hope you're right. We gotta get that serum through.